What's up everyone, this is Bacon, and today we're going to be doing a signature item priority video. So I'm going to go over about 10-ish heroes that I think are worth prioritizing signature items for. And just to kind of explain my thought process, it's a blend of heroes that are pretty dependent on the signature items being built up and heroes that are really good in the game. So I'm not going to be doing, for example, say Sylas is really dependent on his signature item to really do anything, but he's a garbage hero. So I'm not going to talk about him. So it's going to be a blend of those two ratings. I'm also not including Dimensionals at the beginning of this. I'm going to talk about Dimensionals at the end and their own little separate thing. And so if you're curious about Dimensionals, just kind of skip to the end or just watch the whole thing and then see the Dimensionals at the end, just because not everyone has the Dimensionals, so it doesn't really make sense to just lump them into the main tier list. I want to talk about heroes that everyone can technically have access to. So first we're going to talk about Trisha. Trisha is the best hero in the game. She is just so good. Her damage output is insane when you build her out. But that means your signature item needs to be built out to about plus 20 to get the most value out of her. That's kind of the sweet spot. Now, with a lot of heroes, the plus 20 mark is a really big power spike. But with Trisha, because she is such a high, octane character who is just doing a lot of damage, it can be put in pretty much any part of the game. It's not a bad idea to get her to plus 30. So if you want to get her to plus 30 just because you want her to be your big, bad girl who's just doing everything, that's totally fine. But I would say plus 20 is the spot for her that you're going to want to aim for as far as priority list. And she would be my number one person to go for. Now, if you are at the point where you have Awakened Sylas, she is one of the few heroes where you want to absolutely max out that signature item. Getting it to plus 30, Awakened Sylas is arguably the best hero in the game next to Trisha. I'd say they're kind of hand in hand. Awakened Sylas does a little bit different things than Trisha does, so I think you could pretty much say they're like the top two best heroes in the game, in my opinion. But this is what you want to do. Get it to plus 30. If you're going to just have one hero when you're starting the game and you're finally unlocking Awakened Sylas to get to plus 30, I would say she should be your number one plus 30 priority. Unfortunately, you don't get her till later in the game once you have those Ascended Wilders, so you might want to put it in someone else, which I think is okay because chances are by the time you unlock her, you're going to be able to get at least two heroes to plus 30. Next, let's switch to the Graveborn faction. I could talk about the Wilders for a long time, but let's talk about Mira. Mira, I think, is just the best Graveborn in the game. She is a really cool hero. Fun fact, this isn't a fact, this is just something I think is funny, is she has a mirror in Mira. Sounds like mirror. I don't know if that's intentional, but I'm going to tell myself that Mira is a mirror hero. I don't know. Anyway, signature item, she is another hero where you want to get that sweet spot at plus 20. And like Trisha, if you don't know who to get to plus 30 or you have a lot of resources, you could definitely invest into the plus 30 for her just to get that extra effects that you get at plus 30. But plus 20 is the kind of sweet spot for her that I would aim for. So let's go ahead and go back to the Wilders. Now, I'm going to talk about two heroes quick. Mishka and Navanthi are both heroes that are very valuable in the game. You basically, Mishka, getting her to plus 20 is ideal. Navanthi also 20 is probably ideal. And you could get her at 10, but 20 is just a little bit nicer for her. So for both Mishka and Navanthi, I would say plus 20. And then if you do that, you will have Mishka, Navanthi, and then Trisha and Awakened Sylas, which are like the four, just like kind of the goats of AFK and companions, not literally the goats. That is going to go to Namora, who's actually probably a sheep. I don't know. But I would say those four are the four that you really like. You can do some big progression and damage with those two. And if you want to throw Leica in there as well, you could also put her in. Leica's her signature item plus 30 is actually very valuable. But there are better heroes to kind of prioritize for her. But she's another hero if you're kind of like, I have all these resources. I don't really know who else to put it in to get to plus 30. You could do Leica. but I would suggest prioritizing Trisha, Mira, and Awakened Sylas over Leica. Next, we're going to go ahead and go to the Lightbearer faction. Now, here, there's not a ton of like amazing heroes for signature items, but I think the one that stands out to me is Gwyneth. Gwyneth is a really good hero once you build her out, once you get her ascended with some stars. She can really crank some damage, and she's one of the few heroes that doesn't necessarily fall off as the game progresses. So there are heroes like Shamira, a little bit Sanja, who kind of fall off as they get into the harder parts of the game. But Gwyneth is someone who just kind of keeps on rolling and just does her stuff. And so she's a hero where I think getting her to plus 20 is definitely needed if you want to use her. I think 30, similar situation to Mira and Trisha. If you are not sure or don't really have anyone else that you think would be good to put plus 30 on the signature item, it doesn't hurt her to do that for Gwyneth. It just makes her stronger. Now, staying in the Lightbearers, let's go ahead and take a look at the two big supports of this faction, and that is Rowan and Rosaline. Now, with these two, I think plus 20 is the sweet spot for both of them, but I don't know if I would prioritize both of these heroes if you're going to invest signature items to plus 20. And what I mean by that is I would pick one or the other. Rosaline is really good for boss content. Think Dream Realms, Guild Boss, stuff like that. Some events like the partner event where you partner with someone and then you can take like the top tiers and attack some bosses. I don't even know what it's called. But she can be really valuable in those scenarios. And I personally, if I'm going to pick Rosaline or Rowan to get to plus 20, honestly, I'm probably going to pick Rosaline. I just think she will stand the test of time with her usefulness. I think she will continue to be really good in the future, where I think Rowan will also maintain a lot of his, usefulness, but I just don't think he's going to maintain it like Rosaline's. I would pick Rosaline over Rowan, but these are both heroes that you could invest into their signature items to plus 20 as well. Now, let's go ahead and go to Maulers because we have kind of been slacking with talking about Maulers. Now, let's go to my boy Crassio down here. Crassio is someone who really surprised me as I continue to play companions. He can do some big boy damage, and he is a hero that I think putting him to plus 10 adds a lot of value. Just the easy plus 10 increases crit rating and tenacity bonus. It's really nice. But if you're wanting him to really just pop off, there are videos or there are times when you can borrow someone else's Crassio who's max built, and he just cranks out damage. If you want him to be doing that, you'll want to get his signature item to plus 30. But 10, you will get a lot of usefulness out of him as well. But 30 is the point where if you want him to really shine, do that. I don't think he's worth getting to plus 20. I think it's 10 or 30 and nothing in between. So he's one of the few Maulers that I think is really valuable with signature item. Next, let's take a look at Awakened Brutus. Awakened Brutus, just like Awakened Sylas, you might not get until later in the game, which is perfectly fine. But with that being said, I think he's a hero that plus 20 is just going to be the good spot. He's not as needy as Awakened Sylas with getting it to plus 30. Now, if you want to get it to plus 30, there's benefits to that. He's going to be stronger in both PvP and campaign, but he's not going to just like have a huge drastic shift in how useful he is. Plus 20 is perfectly fine with Awakened Brutus. I personally am getting it to plus 30 just because I just kind of did it. I saved up and I was like, sure, I'll get him to plus 30. Because he's an Awakened hero, and I thought it was really exciting. But you definitely do not need to do that at all. Plus 20 is perfectly fine with Awakened Brutus. Now, let's go ahead and jump back to the Graveborns. And let's look at Sylas. Sylas is a hero that offers a lot of buffing, healing to your team. He's one of the best in the game at doing this, actually. And he's really valuable for the Graveborn faction. Think about faction towers and different areas like that. And you only really need to get him to plus 10 to get a good amount of value from his signature item. Further on is just kind of stat padding and giving a little more extra oomph, but plus 10, you definitely get a good amount of value from him, and that's what I would recommend for Sylas's signature item. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at our first Celestial, Talene. Talene is a very interesting hero. You either want to do one of two things with Talene. You want to keep her at 1 or 2 copies, and you just use her like that. She's useful in campaign and towers just with a 1 copy of her. Or you want to absolutely max her out and get her to Ascended 5 with a signature item 30, and there's no middle ground. If you get her to Mythic or Mythic Plus and you get her signature item unlocked, you either want to keep pushing to A5 or Awakened or Ascended 5, or just leave her be and not invest in her signature item. She's not a hero that's worth getting to Mythic and then maxing out her signature item. You want to just fully build her out. So she's a great hero. She's like top 5 heroes in the game, in my opinion. But to get her to that top 5 value, you need to basically fully invest in her, which can take a long time because she's a Celestial, especially if you're a free-to-play. Now, the last hero I'm going to talk about before we jump into Dimensionals is Mahira. Mahira is another hero where if you get her to, you can get her kind of built up and you get a lot of value out of her. If you get her to Mythic and unlock her signature item, you pretty much want to max out her signature item to get that big value spike from her. She's not worth building up to the Mythic area unless you're going to be unlocking her signature item and maxing it out to plus 30. But if you're not going to do that and you just have 1 or 2 copies of her, that's perfectly fine too. She has some value in that regard, just is not quite as valuable as getting her maxed out. So Mahira is an interesting one. I wanted to throw in one Hypogean hero that I think is worth considering building out, especially with their signature item, and Mahira, what to me is that one. None of these other people I really think are super worth it, to be honest. So now let's take a look at Dimensionals. Now there is one hero on here that I think absolutely plus 30 is essential if you are going to build this hero out. And those of you who have her, I would say that is Albedo. Her signature item plus 30. If you want it, I'll just read it because I think it's that great. For each allied dimensional hero deployed in battle, the attack rate of all dimensional heroes is increased by 15%, and this can stack up to 3 times. And then at 20, at first unlock, for each allied dimensional hero deployed in battle, the defense rating of all dimensionals is increased by 15%, and this can be stacked up to 2 times. And then it just kind of basically continues buffing that. Now, plus 30 is really strong on her because it just makes your dimensional team super powerful. And Albedo is just a hero that I think is the only dimensional hero worth getting signature item to plus 30. Outside of Ainz, if you are going to use Ainz, I don't think Ainz is the best dimensional hero. So I don't really think he's worth getting to plus 30. He's basically a hero that you need to max out or you're just not going to get a lot of value out of him. And I think there's other heroes that are worth building out. Shaltir, plus 20. Marcel, get that signature item, plus 20. Basically, all of them, I think, plus 20 is a good spot to kind of get them at. And the only ones worth getting to plus 30, in my opinion, are Albedo. And if you are dead set on building out Ainz. But I think Albedo is really the only one that's highly, highly worth investing in. Now, that is it for my priority list for signature items. I would say every hero that I've mentioned in here is worth investing in your signature items. Like I said, the first 3, 4, 5 heroes, those are going to be the sweet spots. So that's going to include Trisha, Awakened Sylas, Mira. Who else? Mishka. And then I would throw Gwyneth and Crassio in there as well. I think those are plenty good heroes to kind of start off on and try to get them to the recommended points that I mentioned in the video. But hopefully this is helpful. I saw a lot of people, not a lot of people, but I saw someone ask about this, and it was a great idea, something I hadn't thought of before. So hopefully this video is helpful. If you like this video, make sure you like and subscribe below. And as always, have a great rest of your day. Peace.